The flashlight beam stopped on the floor. Detective Aaron Cole froze. The basement smelled like dust and old wood. The house had been empty for years, and broken boards creaked under his boots as he stepped closer. Then he saw it. A small metal box. Inside were photographs. Old photographs. Dozens of them. Every photo showed the same thing. Young women. Different places. Different years. But on the back of each photo, someone had written the same strange symbol. And suddenly Aaron realized something that made his heart pound. These women were all missing. From different states, different decades. And no one had ever connected the cases. Until now, Aaron slowly picked up the last photograph. This one was different. Because the woman in the picture wasn't missing from 1992. She disappeared 3 weeks ago, and someone had just reopened a crime that had been hiding for 30 years. Let's rewind 28 years. The town of Brookridge looked peaceful. It was the kind of small American town where people left their doors unlocked, and kids rode bikes until the streetlights turned on. Nothing bad ever happened in Brookridge. At least, that's what people believed. Until the summer of 1996. Her name was Emily Harper. She was 19 years old. Emily had bright eyes, long brown hair, and a quiet smile that made people feel comfortable. She worked at a small coffee shop near the highway, saving money for college. Everyone said the same things about her. She was kind. She helped everyone. She had her whole life ahead of her. On the night she disappeared, nothing seemed unusual. Emily closed the coffee shop at 9:00 p.m. Her coworker Jenna watched her lock the door. "You heading straight home?" Jenna asked. Emily nodded. "My dad wants me home early," she laughed. "He still thinks I'm 12. Jenna rolled her eyes. "See you tomorrow." Emily walked across the parking lot to her car. That was the last confirmed time anyone saw her. Her car was found the next morning, still parked, still locked. Her purse was inside. But Emily was gone. The town panicked. Police searched everywhere. They searched the woods behind the highway. They searched the river. They knocked on every door in Brookridge. Nothing. No witnesses. No evidence. No answers. Detective Martin Hale led the investigation. Hale was an experienced officer who had solved many cases in his career. But this one was different. Because the more he looked, the stranger things became. Emily's disappearance made no sense. There were no signs of a struggle, no footprints, no camera footage. It was as if Emily had simply vanished into thin air. Weeks turned into months, and months turned into years. The case slowly grew cold. People stopped talking about it. The coffee shop changed owners. Emily's family moved away, and Brookridge tried to forget. But Detective Hale never did. He kept the file. Every few years, he'd open it again, viewing the photos, the maps, the witness statements. Something about the case felt unfinished, like a puzzle missing its final piece. But he never found that piece. Years passed. Detective Hale retired. The Emily Harper case was placed in storage, just another cold case gathering dust, until something strange happened. In 2008, a detective in another state noticed something unusual. Her name was Detective Laura Kim. She worked in Washington State. Laura was reviewing a missing persons file when she noticed a detail that bothered her. The victim was a college student named Rachel Owens. Rachel disappeared after leaving a restaurant late at night. Her car was found parked. Her purse was inside. She had simply vanished. The case sounded familiar, too familiar. Laura searched through old reports. And then she found it, Emily Harper. The same pattern. Young woman, late night, car left behind. No witnesses, no evidence. Laura wondered if it was a coincidence or something worse, but there wasn't enough proof, so the cases stayed separate. Over the next 15 years, more disappearances happened. Different states, different towns, different police departments. Each case looked slightly different on its own, but if someone placed them side by side, a pattern slowly appeared. Young women, late evening, cars left behind. No clear evidence, no suspect, no answers. But no one connected the dots. Not yet. Then came the year 2024. Detective Aaron Cole had just joined the cold case unit in Brookridge. Aaron was known for being patient, careful, obsessed with details. While reviewing old files, he discovered the Emily Harper case. At first, It looked like a typical cold case, but something about it felt strange. Aaron noticed a small detail others had missed. Inside the evidence box was a photograph of Emily and her coworkers at the coffee shop. Behind them was a corkboard filled with flyers. One flyer caught Aaron's attention. It was a missing person poster, but not for Emily. It was for another girl, Sarah Whitman, who disappeared months before Emily did. Sarah vanished from a nearby town. Her car was also found parked. Her purse was also left behind. Aaron leaned back in his chair. 2 disappearances. Same region. Same year. Same strange pattern. And no one had ever connected them. Why? He began digging deeper. That's when things became disturbing. Because Sarah Whitman wasn't the only one. Over the next few weeks, Aaron discovered several similar cases across multiple states. Each one looked small on its own, but together, they formed a pattern that stretched across decades. Aaron printed photos of the missing women and pinned them to a board in his office. He connected the dates, the locations, the circumstances. Slowly, a timeline began to appear, and the timeline showed something terrifying. Someone had been operating for nearly 30 years, quietly, carefully, without leaving a trace of evidence. Aaron presented the theory to his supervisor. The room went silent. "That's impossible," someone said. 30 years and no arrest? Aaron shook his head. Unless nobody realized the cases were connected. Weeks later, Aaron received a call. An old, abandoned house outside Brookridge was scheduled for demolition. Before the crew could move in, police were required to search the property. Aaron volunteered to inspect it. At first, the house looked empty. Dusty rooms, broken windows, peeling paint. But the basement was different. There was a locked door. Inside the storage room, Aaron found something strange. A metal box hidden behind wooden panels. Inside the box were the photographs, dozens of them. Photos of young women in different cities, from different years. Each photo had a date written on the back, and a small symbol, a strange mark that looked like a triangle crossed by a line. Aaron compared the photos to the cold case files. His hands started shaking. Several of the women in the photos were officially listed as missing persons. Someone had been collecting their pictures, watching them, tracking them, for decades. But the final photo terrified Aaron the most, because it showed a young woman standing outside a bookstore. The date written on the back was only 3 weeks old. Aaron opened a new missing persons report. The name matched. The woman had disappeared recently, which meant something chilling. Whoever had taken those photographs was still out there, still watching, still choosing victims. And then Aaron noticed something that made his blood run cold. One final object sat at the bottom of the box. A small notebook. Inside were dozens of names. Some were crossed out, others were not. And at the very bottom of the list was a name Aaron recognized. A name connected to someone very close to the investigation. Someone still alive. Someone who had no idea they were being watched. And that was the moment Detective Aaron Cole realized something terrifying. This case wasn't cold. It was just beginning. The name at the bottom of the notebook made Detective Aaron Cole stop breathing for a moment. He stared at it again and again, because it wasn't the name of someone who disappeared. It was the name of someone who was still alive. Someone who worked at the Brookridge Police Department. Detective Laura Bennett. Aaron slowly closed the notebook. His mind raced. Why would her name be here? Was she the next target? Or was something else happening? Aaron knew one thing immediately. He could not tell anyone yet. Not until he understood what this notebook meant. The next morning, Aaron returned to the cold case unit early. The police station was quiet. He placed the photographs across a long table. Emily Harper, Sarah Whitman, Rachel Owens, and many others. Some from Oregon, some from California, some from Washington. Different years, different towns, but the same strange pattern. Young women, late evening, cars left behind, no witnesses. Aaron opened the notebook again. Each page had names, dates, cities. Some names had a small check mark beside them. Others had a simple circle. But the names with check marks, those were the missing women. The circles were different. Those women had never been reported missing. Aaron's stomach tightened. Were those future targets? Or women the person had been watching? He turned to the last page again. There it was. Detective Laura Bennett. A circle beside her name. Aaron walked down the hallway toward the investigation office. Laura Bennett sat at her desk reviewing paperwork. She looked up. "Morning, Cole." Laura was in her mid-30s. Calm, sharp, one of the best investigators in the department. Aaron forced a normal smile. "Morning." He studied her face carefully. She had no idea. No idea someone might be watching her. No idea her name was in that notebook. Aaron decided to ask a simple question. "Laura, do you know anything about the Emily Harper case?" Laura leaned back in her chair. "That old disappearance from the 90s?" Aaron nodded. Laura shrugged. "Not much. It was before my time here." Then she paused. "Why?" Aaron hesitated. "Just reviewing cold cases." Laura nodded and returned to her work. Aaron walked away slowly. If someone had been watching these women, they had to be nearby. Someone who knew the towns. Someone who could move quietly between places. Someone who had avoided suspicion for decades. That afternoon, Aaron called several police departments across the country. He spoke with detectives in Oregon, Washington, California. Each time he asked the same question. "Did your missing persons case involve a car left behind?" Many said yes. "Was the victim a young woman?" Again, yes. "Did the disappearance happen late evening or night?" Yes. The pattern was real, and it stretched across more than 30 years. Aaron pinned more photos onto the investigation board. The board slowly filled with faces. Students, workers, young women living ordinary lives. Until one night, they disappeared. But one detail was still missing. What connected all the locations? Why those cities? Why those victims? Aaron studied the map again. Then something caught his eye. Every disappearance was near a highway. Major highways that crossed several western states. Interstate routes. Roads used by truck drivers, delivery drivers, traveling workers. People who moved constantly between cities. People who were hard to track. Aaron circled the highways on the map. A chilling idea formed in his mind. What if the suspect had a job that required constant travel? That would explain everything. The changing states, the changing cities, the long timeline. A person moving quietly through the country for decades. The next day, Aaron requested transportation records. He looked for companies with employees traveling the same highway routes. Trucking companies, delivery services, construction contractors. Hundreds of names appeared. Too many to search one by one. But then something strange happened. While reviewing the photographs from the metal box again, Aaron noticed something small in the background of one picture. A truck, parked across the street. It had a company logo on the side. The logo was faded, but still visible. Aaron zoomed in. The name read, North Ridge Freight, a regional trucking company that operated across Washington, Oregon, and California. Aaron immediately checked employee records from the 1990s. The company had hundreds of drivers, but one name caught his attention. A driver named Daniel Cross. Daniel had worked for the company for nearly 25 years. His routes traveled through many of the cities connected to the disappearances. Aaron checked Cross's schedule history. Every time a woman vanished, Cross had been driving through the same region. Aaron leaned back slowly. It could be coincidence, but the pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. Aaron and two other detectives visited the North Ridge Freight office. The manager greeted them politely. "We're happy to help with anything," he said. Aaron showed him a photo of Daniel Cross. "Does he still work here?" The manager nodded. "Yeah, Daniel's one of our oldest drivers. Quiet guy. Keeps to himself." Aaron asked another question. "Where is he today?" The manager checked the schedule. "En route right now. Delivering cargo to Spokane." Aaron nodded. "How long has he worked here?" That timeline matched many of the disappearances. But there was one problem. Daniel Cross had a clean record, months at a time. Those breaks matched gaps in the disappearance timeline. Years when no cases occurred. Years when Cross had stopped driving. Aaron felt a chill. If the theory was true, the disappearances only happened when Cross was working. Aaron printed the timeline and pinned it beside the map. Everything aligned. Cities, dates, routes. But Aaron still needed real proof. A photograph wasn't enough. A coincidence wasn't enough. They needed evidence. That night, Aaron stayed late at the office. He reviewed the notebook again. The final page with the uncrossed names. Women who had not disappeared. Women who might be targets. His eyes stopped again on one name. Detective Laura Bennett. Why her? Why would a truck driver target a police detective? Unless... Aaron suddenly realized something disturbing. Laura Bennett had grown up in Brookridge. She was the same age as Emily Harper. They had gone to the same high school. Aaron checked the old yearbook. Emily Harper, Laura Bennett, both in the same graduating class. Aaron felt his heart pounding. What if the suspect had known them? What if this wasn't random at all? What if the victims were being chosen for a reason? Aaron grabbed the notebook again. He flipped through the pages carefully, looking closer this time. Every victim had one small detail in common. They had all attended colleges or schools along the same highway corridor, schools near Daniel Cross's driving routes. But more importantly, several victims had attended the same high school events. Festivals, football games, community gatherings in Brookridge. The suspect might not have been a stranger passing through. He might have been someone who knew the town, someone who had watched these women long before they disappeared. Aaron immediately ordered surveillance on Daniel Cross. If Cross was responsible, they needed to catch him before another woman disappeared. Because one thing was now clear, the final name in the notebook had not been crossed out, which meant the suspect might still be planning something. And that name was Detective Laura Bennett. 2 nights later, the surveillance team followed Daniel Cross's truck along Interstate 5. Everything looked normal. Cargo deliveries, fuel stops, highway driving. But then something unexpected happened. Cross exited the highway near Brookridge. That wasn't part of his delivery route. The surveillance team followed at a distance. Cross drove slowly through quiet streets. Then he stopped near a small park. The truck engine shut off. For 20 minutes, nothing happened. Then Cross stepped out of the truck and started walking toward a nearby neighborhood, the same neighborhood where Detective Laura Bennett lived. Aaron listened to the radio transmission from the surveillance team. His pulse quickened. Something was about to happen. Then the radio crackled again. "Detective, we have a problem." Aaron grabbed the microphone. "What is it?" The voice on the radio sounded tense. "Daniel Cross just walked into Laura Bennett Street." A pause. Then the officer said something that made the entire investigation suddenly feel much more dangerous. "Detective, he's not alone." And standing beside Daniel Cross was someone Aaron never expected to see. Someone from inside the police department. Someone who had access to the cold case files. Someone who knew exactly how the investigation worked. Someone who had been helping hide the truth for decades. And that realization meant one terrifying thing. The killer might not be working alone. The radio went silent for a moment. Detective Aaron Cole felt the tension tighten inside the surveillance van like a rope being pulled too hard. "Repeat that," Aaron said into the microphone. The officer watching the scene spoke again, his voice low. "Daniel Cross is walking down Laura Bennett Street. And he's with someone." Aaron's fingers tightened around the radio. "Who is it?" There was a pause, long enough to make the entire situation feel worse. Then the officer answered. "It's Lieutenant Mark Reynolds." Aaron froze. Lieutenant Reynolds wasn't just another officer. He was the head of the investigative division. He supervised the cold case unit. He had access to every file, every report, every single piece of evidence connected to decades of disappearances. For a moment, Aaron wondered if he had misunderstood. Maybe Reynolds was part of a separate operation. Maybe this was all just a terrible coincidence. But deep down, a gut feeling told him this was no coincidence at all. Outside, the quiet neighborhood street looked peaceful under the soft glow of the streetlights. A few houses had their porch lights on, but most people inside were fast asleep, unaware of the drama unfolding. The surveillance officers watched carefully from 2 parked vehicles as Daniel Cross and Lieutenant Reynolds walked slowly along the sidewalk. They stopped near the corner of the street, just a short distance from Laura Bennett's home. Cross looked calm, too calm. Reynolds spoke quietly to him, his words lost to the wind, but their body language shouted volumes. This was not the first time they had met. Aaron listened intently to the radio updates. Both men are standing near the parked truck. Cross opened the passenger door. Reynolds is looking around the street. Aaron's mind raced, trying to connect the dots. Why would a high-ranking police lieutenant meet secretly with a truck driver connected to decades of disappearances? Then, a horrifying possibility began to form. What if the investigation had been blocked from the inside? What if someone had been protecting the suspect all along? Aaron remembered the missing evidence from old cases. Files that were incomplete, reports that were strangely short, witness statements that had vanished without a trace. At the time, everyone had blamed it on poor record-keeping from a different era. But now, it looked very, very different. Aaron made a decision. "Move in," he ordered through the radio. 2 patrol units quietly approached the street, their headlights off. The surveillance officers stepped out of their vehicles. One officer spoke through the radio again. "Detective, both suspects are still standing near the truck." Aaron took a deep breath. "Detain them both." The officers began moving closer, shadows in the night. But something changed. Daniel Cross suddenly turned his head, his eyes scanning the street. He had noticed the movement. Then he saw them, the approaching officers. Cross stepped backward as Reynolds looked surprised. "What's going on?" Reynolds said loudly. An officer raised his voice, shattering the quiet. "Police, stay where you are." Cross looked at Reynolds. For a split second, neither man moved. Then Cross did something completely unexpected. He raised his hands calmly. No panic, no attempt to run. It was almost as if he knew this moment would come someday. The officers moved in quickly, placing Cross in handcuffs. Another officer turned toward Reynolds. "Lieutenant Reynolds, we need you to step aside." Reynolds looked furious. "What is this about?" Aaron's voice came through the radio again, clear and firm. "Detain him." Reynolds stared at the officers in disbelief. "You're making a huge mistake." But the officers followed their orders. Within seconds, both men were standing beside the truck in handcuffs. The quiet neighborhood had suddenly become an active crime scene. At the station, the air in the interrogation rooms was thick with tension. Daniel Cross sat calmly in one room, while Lieutenant Reynolds sat anxiously in another. Aaron entered Cross's room first. Up close, Cross looked older, with gray hair and tired eyes. His face was almost ordinary. Aaron placed the old notebook on the table between them. Cross looked down at it, but his expression didn't change. Aaron spoke slowly. "This was found in a storage locker." Cross said nothing. Aaron opened the notebook, revealing pages filled with names. Some had check marks next to them. Others had circles. "You traveled across 3 states for 25 years, Aaron continued. Your delivery routes match the locations of multiple disappearances." Still, Cross remained silent. Aaron leaned forward. "And tonight you were seen meeting with Lieutenant Reynolds." Cross finally looked up. For a moment, the room felt very quiet. Then he spoke, his voice unnervingly calm. "I wondered when someone would figure it out." Aaron's chest tightened. "Figure what out?" Cross glanced at the notebook again. "The pattern." Aaron said nothing, letting him talk. Cross leaned back in his chair. "It took longer than I expected." Aaron pressed him. "Why the names? Why those women?" Cross looked at the wall, his eyes distant. "I watched them for years." Aaron waited. "They were always in the same places," Cross continued. "Schools, events, roads along my delivery routes." Aaron asked the question that mattered most. "Were you working alone?" Cross looked at Aaron again, a small, chilling smile on his face. "You already know the answer to that." In the other interrogation room, Lieutenant Reynolds was a different story entirely. He was nervous, sweat covering his forehead. Aaron entered the room and placed the same notebook on the table. Reynolds immediately looked away. "Where did you get that?" he asked, his voice shaking. Aaron sat down. "You tell me." Reynolds shook his head. "I don't know anything about it." Aaron leaned forward. "You supervised the cold case files for 15 years. Reynolds said nothing. "Several pieces of evidence disappeared during that time." Still silence. "And tonight, you were meeting Daniel Cross." Reynolds finally broke. "You don't understand." "Then explain it," Aaron demanded. Reynolds looked exhausted, defeated. "It started years ago," he said quietly. "Cross was stopped during a traffic check. One of my officers noticed something strange in his truck." "What?" Aaron asked. "Photos," Reynolds whispered. "Photos of young women." Aaron glanced at the notebook on the table. "Victims, Reynolds nodded slowly. But we didn't have enough proof to charge him. So what did you do? Reynolds looked ashamed. I made a terrible decision. Aaron waited. I thought if I kept an eye on him, I'd catch him later. Aaron's voice hardened. So you covered it up? Reynolds nodded slowly. I told the officer to forget the photos. Aaron stared at him, the weight of his words hanging in the air. That decision may have allowed more disappearances to happen. Reynolds closed his eyes. I know. Over the next several weeks, investigators tore through Daniel Cross's truck and home. They discovered a trove of evidence, photographs, maps, old records connected to dozens of missing persons investigations. Some cases finally had answers. Others, tragically, remained mysteries. Lieutenant Reynolds was removed from his position and faced serious charges for obstruction and misconduct. His decision years earlier had allowed a predator to move across states without suspicion. But the investigation also revealed something important. Many modern cases had been prevented because law enforcement agencies had dramatically improved how they share information. Today, police departments across different states coordinate their data, track patterns, and use technology and behavioral profiling to identify connections between crimes. The system isn't perfect, but it is much stronger than it once was. Months later, Aaron stood inside the cold case unit. The large investigation board had changed. Many photographs had been moved from unsolved to closed. Others still waited for answers. Laura Bennett entered the room and looked at the board quietly. Hard to believe one notebook started all of this, she said. Aaron nodded. Patterns can stay hidden for a long time. Laura folded her arms. But eventually, someone sees them. Aaron looked at the final page of the notebook again. The names with circles around them. Women who had never disappeared. Women who were still alive. Because the investigation had finally uncovered the truth. And sometimes, in the world of true crime, the most important discovery isn't just the crimes themselves. It's the moment someone finally connects the pattern that was hiding in plain sight all along. Thanks for watching. If you found this story compelling, please consider subscribing for more deep dives into fascinating cases. We'll see you next time.